Surviving in the eye of the storm. We all have storms in our lives and find some way to survive those life storms. I hold up this book to show you this loving family in a photo taken before World War II. Leon Kleiner, the author, is the young boy in the picture. They had no idea of the violence about to descend on them. Save My Children is a book about a young Jewish boy and his two siblings, an older sister and an older brother, fleeing a world being destroyed by hate. Timish, a notoriously cruel anti-Semite, hunts for Jews, and he is the hero of this story. Why did this cruel man risk his own life to save these children? When I read this book, given to me by my daughter, I discovered a few things. This is not the usual concentration camp story. There is only a work camp in the story. A few other facts caught my attention. 1. Leon Kleiner, the author, and I were both born in 1928. Both of us are still living and widowers. 2. I was born and raised in Camden in South New Jersey. Leon immigrated to America and settled in South Orange, New Jersey, not far from Camden. He was raised in a loving family, just as I was raised in a loving family. The hero of the story, Timish, was converted in a Soviet prison as he waited execution. He began to feel guilt and shame over his mistreatment of the Jews. A fellow prisoner, a priest, listened to his life story and then said, "You must repent and atone for your cruelty to the Jews." Timish did. Wouldn't that have caught your attention? Being a religious volunteer in the Fairfax jail enables me to share God and Jesus with the inmates. In this heartrending book, Leon Kleiner, an 11-year-old boy, and his two siblings fight for survival after the evil of the Nazi regime descends upon their hometown on the Poland-Ukraine border. Time after time, Leon and his brother and sister miraculously escape certain death as the numerous fascist attempts to make their hometown Tbilisi Judenrein, that is, free of Jews. The three children were assigned to a work camp. Their luck seems to have run out when the Germans ordered the camp to be closed and the workers executed. Unexpected help comes from Timish, as the females in the town are being led to their execution. The townspeople, including Timish, lined the streets just like they were watching a parade. Yet this was a parade of Jewish women and children being marched to their execution site. What was their crime? Being born was their crime. Being born Jewish was their crime. Mrs. Kleiner spotted Timish, who had helped her family before, in the lines of people, and he heard her shout out to him in a desperate plea, "Save my children. Please save my children," as she was marched to her execution. Timish amazingly risks his own life to make sure the Kleiner children survive. Why? Because of his conversion in a Soviet prison by a priest. Timish became a true and resourceful friend of Leon's family. He risked his life to make sure the children survived. Timish, on escaping from prison, builds an underground bunker under his house for the surviving members of the Kleiner family. And they were to live in that bunker for more than 9 months. There was a single light bulb, shared small beds, food provided through a chimney flue, and the body waste pulled up through that flue. Then they had to leave the bunker. After the war, Leon and his brother and sister were allowed to immigrate to America, the land of the free. They loved America, and it is here that Leon's brother and sister died. To honor them and Timish, Leon decided to write this book, Save My Children. He wanted to add his testimony to those of his siblings when they shared their Holocaust recordings. What comes forth to me in this book is the focus on gratitude and joy for the last words of his mother, and of Timish listening and acting upon the last words of his mother. There was also sorrow over the death of his mother and other relatives who did not deserve to die. Leon describes how unfailing loyalty and true friendship from an ardent and cruel anti-Semite who, in the end, saved their lives. The Apostle Paul, as we know, was formerly cruel to the followers of Jesus, and he lived through the eyes of his storms. One line in 2 Corinthians 4:17 should catch your attention. Quote, "For our light and momentary problems are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweigh them." Then Paul says in verse 18, "So when we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." Light and momentary troubles? Paul has to be kidding. In Paul's missionary journeys, he mentions being imprisoned, beaten with the whip 5 times, faced death, beaten with rods 3 times, stranded at sea, left homeless, in constant danger, and hungry and thirsty. If you were Paul, you wouldn't consider what he went through as light and momentary problems, would you? Let me end with another true story of light and momentary troubles. This too is a World War II story. Are you ready? The old man on the pier couldn't go a week without saying thank you. If you were alive in 1942, you probably remember a report that this famed pilot was missing at sea. Eddie was sent on a message to deliver a message to General Douglas MacArthur. With a hand-picked crew in a B-17 plane known as the Flying Fortress, they set off across the South Pacific. They became lost. Their fuel ran out and the plane went down. All 8 crew members escaped in life rafts. That was a miracle. They battled the weather, hot sun, heavy seas, and after 8 days, their food was gone. They ran out of options. It would take a miracle for them to survive. And a miracle occurred. After a Friday afternoon devotional time, the men said a prayer and then rested. Eddie slumped down with his hat pulled over his eyes when something landed on his hat. Eddie would later say that he knew it was a seagull. He just knew it was a gull. He reached up, caught the gull, and it became food and moisture for 8 men. The gull's flesh also became bait for them to catch fish. What was the seagull doing flying hundreds of miles from shore? Only God knows. But whatever the reason, Eddie Rickenbacker was thankful. They were rescued. On his retirement, old man Eddie spends every Friday evening walking to the pier his small bucket full of shrimp, and his heart full of thanks. We have much in common with Leon and Eddie as we survive the eye of the storms in our lives. And we have every reason to look into the sky and thank God and worship Him who is Lord of Lords and King of Kings. Save my children. Leon Kleiner's true story of being saved by an anti-Semite turned hero, and Eddie Rickenbacker's story of being saved by a seagull is the transformation of the lives of two men. They are thankful for survival in the face of death. Next week, I will discuss our need to help others in one way or the other. God bless you and have a good week.